Hello everyone, this is Ram from CrossMind Studio and welcome back to the chapter number 3 of this workshop about show title design. And I hope you have all prepared the things that we had discussed in the previous chapter, some groundwork that we talked about the gathering resources and stuff, because today we are going to just bash into the concept and make all sort of efforts to make it look just the way we imagined it during the concept and brainstorming session. And so this chapter is going to be all about visualizing. We are going to just make an end frame in Blender 3D, and basically this is going to be end frame, the final frame that is going to be revealed during the end of the title. This is going to guide the rest of the production for the animation and visuals. So that is the key goal for this chapter. So first things first, let's just make some basic setup and let's get the unnecessary things out of the way. I'm using Blender 3.1 as we discussed in the previous chapter. So let's bring the artwork that we have from the concept session. Go to the image editor and open a file. Here I have a concept, and let's load this image so that we have reference in front of us all the time. And also let's make this one into a 3D viewport, and this is going to be our camera. All right, so to begin with this, I'm going to grab the font that we downloaded from font.com. So let's type the title of our show, which is going to be guns, with the text tool in the Blender. Let's align this in this way. So let's load the font that we had downloaded, and this should be somewhere here in the font section, fonts, and the name of the font is Big Mecha. There you go. So this looks pretty decent, and the only thing I want to do about this is add some depth into it. I think it's going to be extrude, so let's make some extrude, and also maybe we can add some more thickness by increasing the offset and very slight amount of bevel, and make a copy, another copy out of this. And this we can basically make one sort of outline, another layer of extrusion, just to make it more readable. So we have the text unit. So the first thing I'm going to do is just add one camera here, view, camera to view, place this a bit above the ground just in case if we are running few simulations. 70 mm in the focal length. I think something like this should be fine. This is set on the height, and we'll see some of the bottom part and the left part. So this way we are now logged into the camera, and any of the effort that we are going to make, we are going to make it according to this view. So since this is not like an asset or anything for animation, this is going to be a logo unit that will be only revealed from this particular point of view. So any effort other than this frame, whatever is visible in this frame, is going to be a waste of time. So all that matters for us is that this frame looks good from this particular angle. So in whichever way we can achieve that, whether by cheating it or whatsoever, all we need is some good silhouette around this, just like the concept that we made. So locking in camera, that is going to save you a lot of time. So maybe around this we could make a scope here, something like this, and few muzzle flashes here, and start kitbashing some stuff around the logo, something like this. Exactly what we discussed in the concept session. I just want to make sure that this composition is more horizontal and this unit doesn't have much height, so that it looks like pointed, just like a gun, just like the Gustav gun or the other metal slug composition we talked about in the previous chapter. This way, in the left and right, there should be a few more muzzles here, and the height we are just going to add some scope. Don't make it too tall. If we make the silhouette heavier in all the dimensions, then it's going to be difficult to make it readable in the dark shots. So something like this. And then there's going to be some sort of stand here on which we are going to mount these guns, and then some bullets and smoke. All right. So before we start getting into the details of the rest of the things, the first thing I would like to do is make the type itself sort of give it some properties of the hard surface. So although the font itself is pretty good, and I don't want to take away the readability of the font. I want the font to be readable and not too broken, but at least what we can do is maybe punch some holes into it. So we can do that, or the other way we can do it by adding some details into the depth of this surface, or maybe the bottom or in the sides. So I have few kit bashes, few models which I gathered from various resources. You can work this with the asset library and maybe make a library out of these assets and drag and drop stuff. But basically what I want you to do is have a look around each of these assets. Judging the models through just the thumbnails is a bit tricky for me. So that's why I shortlisted a few models here. Let me split this up further, and this is going to be our working viewport. So something here we want first of all. So let's bring the cursor here, and maybe I can make a duplicate out of this, and Shift S, selection to cursor, scale this up. So just going to use simple commands like move, rotation and scale, and place these things around, something like this. Yeah, something like this. So we just want some suggestion of details, the functionality and all that. I think we can't really afford to get into all that, and it's not even going to be worth it. So all we want is some sort of impression of things instead of treating it like a functional model or something. So that is definitely not going to work, and it's a whole new thing to get into the working functionality of such models. So just going to add some more details here. Let me just speed this thing up a bit. I'll stop talking and just start kitbashing things. So we have some good progress in the text unit, and at this moment it's all broken models. But once we apply some materials and start working with the lighting, because this is going to be partially lit, I think it's going to look fine. For now, let's not worry about it too much. All we wanted was to have some sort of transition between the text and the background unit. So here, if you see, so if you just slap the text on top of these machines, the guns and all that, then it's definitely not going to make much sense, and it will sort of look incomplete. Try to create a transition between the text. From there, start introducing more complex shapes. So here we have simple shapes, then we are just adding some blocky shapes here, and as it goes further we have more detailed shapes. So if you want, you can create some booleans in between this text itself. So let me just convert this to mesh. Let's say if you wanted to treat this like actual hard surface, then you can do that by simply adding some booleans here. So in fact, I'm just going to do that, and let me shade this smooth and bring one boolean modifier. Let's pick this cube that we have and start shaping this. So this will add some artifacts. Let me just hide this and see. Yeah, so the polygons are looking really messed up. Maybe we can solve that by flat shading. Yeah, we can do that. Maybe you can punch a few holes in this. So by just simply going to the edit mode, you can keep on adding some more cylinders, circles, or whatsoever you want. So what this will do is basically add some sort of similar language of hard surfaces into the main text unit itself. At this moment you can't see the boolean. What I'm doing here is simply adding into the same model that I have used for the boolean, and here maybe I can add something here. So once we apply the modifier here and get rid of this, so you can see we have all sort of punches, holes and all that, and within these you can add some more details. Maybe something like this we can bring in here, and some square shapes. Let's see if we can find something. So this is just a suggestion. Just make a call based on the kind of visual you are, the treatment you're going for. So maybe some of it might help. simple rotations and scale is what I'm doing here, kitbashing stuff here and there. This looks good. I'm not going to spend more time on this. So now that we have the main text unit, and I think we can start adding some more details into the main part, which is going to be the depth part here. These details, all the muzzles and scopes and all that. So let's do that first. And for that, let me just grab some shape here. I'm going to place some scopes on the top first. That is a much easier part to deal with. So let me begin with this one. Yeah, so something like this, just breaking the silhouette enough. And now one good part about this font is all the cuts are diagonal. So 45-degree angle here, 45-degree angle here, and the models are kind of following the same sort of language, the angled cuts and all that. So that's why I chose these models. You can actually go for any kind of guns you want. If you are making this about maybe the history of the guns, then you could choose some sort of diesel punk or steampunk or something like that. And maybe if you are just making some sort of for a game intro or something, then you can combine all sort of models like futuristic, arcane, or do anything you want with this. So but for this I wanted something more grounded, or I didn't want it to add too much of futurism into this. So more relatable, although these are a bit futuristic shapes, but it still have some relevance to it. One scope here, and maybe another bit of hint we can add from this one. Copy of this in the depth. So like I said, we don't want to populate the top too much. We just want this composition to follow this sort of direction, horizontal, pointed. And now let's add some muzzles. And here I have all sort of different kind of shapes for the guns, the muzzle shapes. So some are good for particular shots, like this could be good for the top shot when we are talking about the scopes and snipers. I mean, these long shapes could be good for that. But for the sides, I think these are a few good shapes. So let's start with that. Grab this one. So basically what I did was instead of using gun models, I simply extracted some parts and made this simple collection. So I didn't want it to use one sort of kit, and a few things I liked from one kit, and there were a few good models on the Sketchfab, and then some from the Gumroad. So we could make something like this. So I'm looking into this view. Just keep in mind, I'm just trying to break a silhouette, and it doesn't matter what is going on behind this model. So we don't really need to actually make this work. All we need is, according to the storyboard, we will be showing only this particular model view. So just trying to make this work. And just to add sort of readability, we want these muzzles to basically stick out, and we should be able to see these in the dark. So if all of these are just hiding on the same level, then it's going to be difficult to read this in the shadows. So just a bit more separation, maybe another copy of this. So what we can do is just trying to connect these shapes, nothing much. I just want to fill into these parts so that when there is light, I don't want the light to create separation in between. I'm pretty sure once there is a light in the background, so the light could pass through these. So I'm just trying to block that area so that the light won't pass through these parts. This one we can turn this other way, 180 degree. Yeah, something like this. Just trying to add some more weight into this. We'll see. We'll improvise, and maybe we would need to take out some of these later, but for now let's keep it. So we need something on the right side as well. So left and right, both sides, there will be guns and muzzles. So let's grab something else. This part, maybe we can bring some variation, try to use something different here. I think once we add some more weight on these sides of the unit, so that will balance out these parts. But for now, I just want to keep this. I like the design of this part. Maybe this will be some good detail for the render. There is something we need for the stand, and I have shortlisted this model. So there is a Kitbash model for the hard surfaces. This looks good. This looks good, but the details are pretty low poly. I think this should work actually, or we could also make a combine few of these models. Actually, let's just go with this one. Let me just grab the camera and basically I wanted to cut off the rest of the part. Yeah, so this looks fine. So I think this works fine, and the only thing I'm feeling is bottom part kind of looks lighter, the bottom and the top part. So maybe we can add some more weight into this. Let me just scale this up, and this could be slightly more bigger in the size. And this part, the depth kind of looks, I mean, just 4 guns. I think we can make this a bit more dense, add some more models. So maybe if we add some more models into. One more thing, all of these are flushed out models. The muzzles are kind of flushed out into the models. Like here, it's not sticking out much. So for some of the dark shots, we could make it obvious that these are muzzles. So this kind of model is going to be really helpful for that. I just want to add a few more variations of these, and maybe something like this for the handle. Just adding some more density into this. And here I have some models of the pipes. I think we can use few of these things maybe at the top or something. Not quite sure if I just want to basically break these all solid shapes and add something more sort of curvy, and because rest of the things are starting to look a bit boring and monotonous. So I'm just trying to break these shapes, add more circular and round objects. So maybe we can get rid of this as well and instead add some circular object. Let's see if we can add some more details at the bottom. So I have kept some of the images from the mood board in front of me, just trying to get some details, some design hints from the board that we created in the previous chapter. Instead, what we can do here is add some curves maybe. So on this curve, we can simply make it pipe by adding some maybe depth to this. So all I want to do is just sort of make these loose parts look connected. Add some more into the bottom of the silhouette instead of just chunky and square rectangular shapes. We have some more interesting highlights here. So other thing I'm going to do here is add another curve, and this could be, here we have some we were planning for some bullets, the ammo, the chain that you usually have. So we can do that. Let's simply make one shape which we are going to use for the curve guide modifier. I think it's curve guide or something, just the curve. So we simply want to make an array of bullets on these curves. I think I have one model. So yeah, this model here. So let's take this one, make a copy of this one maybe. And again, like I said, if you want, you can use the asset browser. If you have really finished assets lying somewhere, or you have a library of assets, just feel free to use the asset browser. It's much more convenient way, I think. Anyway, so let's bring an array modifier, and this could be, going to bring another modifier, curve, and let's add this one here. So I'm just trying to find the right axis here, and I think I'm almost there. So I just had to drag things in the edit mode for this to align. After working in Blender for so many years, still I can't figure this thing out. We can also later on animate this thing, maybe moving into X direction, something like this. This is another way of adding motion into this limited scene. It looks like we are heading in the right direction. So these things were sort of hanging, the details are a bit unfinished, so trying to cover anything which is not really well finished. One more thing I would like to do is just add some more angle into the camera. So maybe this way, slightly more angular, so we can see more of this part, and it's more diagonal. And since we don't have anything on the ground, maybe we can either add something in the ground, or maybe something like this or this. We won't be seeing ground in any of these shots. Maybe some of the shots will have only when the bullets are falling on the ground. For that particular shot, we can cover things up with the ground. But for the rest of the shots, we don't really need it. So don't worry about the ground at this moment. We just need to find the end frame first. In fact, what you can do is, instead, to add some sort of depth perception, you can add some secondary objects which are aligned at different distance. So since we are working for the end frame, and at this moment we can't really animate everything, but what I'm getting from the end frame is that the rest of the things, the muzzle flashes and the flying bullets, empty shields, these are going to be in middle of the motion, and some sort of like a hang time in middle of animation. So we are either going to use slow motion or something. I think we would need these things in the still frame to get the whole sense of the end frame that we are. The purpose of this whole frame is to give us idea for everything that is going to be in the last frame. I'm going to add these bullets as well. Before getting into any more details about this, what I would do is start working on the lighting first, and later on see if anything needs tweaking once everything is there, like the VDB muzzles, smoke simulations, lighting is there. After that, if we need to tweak something a little bit, then we can keep on doing that. For now, let's don't spend too much time. I think this is turning out well. Can't really complain about this, but feel free to explore if you are enjoying this exercise. So to set up the light and everything, first let's just change the engine to the cycles. So the first things first, I have this file where I made a few metal shaders. So these are all procedural shaders, very basic, simple noise going on here and there combined with multiple textures. I think I'm going to grab one of these and work with it. So this looks fine, the dark metal, and so I'm going to leave these on Gumroad as well. So let's grab this one. Let's put it here. So once you have this material in the scene, you can simply delete this. So I'm just going to copy the same material on every model. I think it's called metal sheet. So let's just select this and select everything else except the bullets, and I don't want bullets to be of the same color. And these parts, some of these models are coming from the Sketchfab, so I think these already have some of the pretty good texturing going on, so we can leave those out of this. And I think similar model is used here. So let's select everything and select this model. Control L, link materials. So for the preview purpose, I'm going to reduce the samples because of the audio problem with the RTX. And for this, I have basically a variation. For the bullets, I have the variation of a similar model. So it's basically simple material with the, let me show you. I'll just create a variation out of this and shader editor. In this, we can use some copper, bronze sort of thing. Just working with the basic stuff. So material preview is not showing up here. Let's just select this one and give it some basic shader. So look, it looks fine. So let me just bring some HDR for now. Seems like we already have some HDR for the preview. For the front logo unit, we can make a variation of the same material. Maybe make this a little more brighter. And the background of the material, the rim part, can be slightly darker. So I think this whole thing does look heavy, and with the material and all, everything does look like one big unit. So the composition is fine. The composition of the camera, the model and everything. I think we should start adding some lights into this. So for the lighting, what we will do is basically it's going to be a mix of staged and practical light. So there isn't much in the background or around the unit, so we don't really have a good idea of the light source. So this is going to be sort of like an armory or something. So there will be a lot of ambient light and dark lit shots. So most of this, the ambience is going to be blue. and some of the lights could emit from the muzzles, are going to emit from these parts, so those could also add into the source of the light. And some of these LEDs and the interface of the guns could emit red lights, as we were discussing in the previous chapter. So these are two of the sources, and then to stage the lighting, I think we can add some something in front of the logo to highlight these parts. A few things could be some more bounce lights here, maybe. We'll decide that, we'll improvise. So first things first, let's make this sort of a dark. So I'll plug this one later into the environment section, but now let's leave it as it is. So this looks fine. In fact, we can reduce it further. I hope you can see this. Looking at the color palette that we had decided for this, let me just open the boards that we made in the previous chapter. So in the color palette, we have something like this. So we were thinking of some blue environment and everything, something like this, and maybe some highlight parts could be red, something like this frame. We don't have an exact reference in front of us, but I think it's going to be pretty easy to figure out. We are just going to deal with some shades of blue and then some shades of warm colors. So let me just copy this just in case if I need it. So I'll add into the collections. Collection could be lights and camera. Let's start with the area light. Let's paste the hex code that we just copied from the mood board. So first thing, I'm just going to try and break the silhouette that we have for some of these parts. Just trying to keep my light sources small, and I don't want to lit up too much of these parts, and each light is purposed for a small area. So we just want some lights here, something like this. To add some sort of ambience in the background, what we can do is add some fog. Maybe bring a cube. I'll just add one volume scatter. So right now it's too dense. Let me just reduce this, something like this. I'm going to change the visibility of this cube from texture to bounce and lock this one. So now for the front part, I think we can use some warm colors in the front part. Again, trying to keep the light sources small and only large enough to cover the area that we need it for. For the logo, what we can do is similarly, let's make one duplicate of this, and let's see if we can add some lights from the bottom instead of pointing from the top. I'm trying to not speak while this is rendering. That kind of interrupts the voice. So this looks interesting. So I'm assuming on these areas which look pretty dark at this moment. So I'm assuming the muzzle flash when the blast happens. So those things can add some lights here. Instead of adding some fake light, we can actually use those. So we can sync sort of lights with the actual blast. So here I'm going to bring one light source point, and let's make this warm color, and we just want to cover this whole area. So similarly, I think this looks pretty dark. Even now, after adding the light, we need some more lights here. So let's see. I'm just trying to keep all these parts as vivid as possible instead of using one light for one direction. In every direction, I'm going to scatter a few lights of different colors, warm, the shades of the warm and blue. And some of these parts on the stand can also have some sort of very small light. So although this looks fine, I think the bottom side of the silhouette is still merging up with the rest of the background. So these could stand out a little. Let me grab a copy of this. And for the fog that we have, this cube, we can reduce the density for this 0.005 instead. Let's bring this down. Let me just reduce the intensity for this one because we want that metallic shader to stand out a bit instead of making the entire thing flat. I think this part is kind of looking way too warm. We should split this up into two lights. So I totally forgot about the red LEDs we were talking about. So some of these parts, like the inside, could have a sort of emission going on. Maybe make a duplicate of this. So sorry about the jump. My recording software crashed. In this part, I have added another light. This was looking quite dark. Again, instead of keeping lights bigger in the shapes and trying to cover the large areas, I'm trying to keep these as small as possible and add as many shades as possible of the warm and blue. And this is the only way we can add sort of vivid colors into this composition, because we don't have much of the colors going on in the models. So we could kind of hack this visual with the lights. All right, so I'm not going to add more lights at this moment, and I think this looks fine. I'll see if later on if this needs some more work. So instead what I'll do is start bringing in the smoke and fire muzzles, the flash VDBs, and see with all those in place how it turns out. So let's create one volume and import open VDB. So I'm going to use the upres data. So when you simulate with the month of flow, you have this low resolution simulation. Then after you add the noise, you have high resolution data. So that is stored into the noise folder. So let's grab this one, and in the properties, let's make this one sequence. So the VDB have 60 frames. Let's add 60. But for some reason it's not showing up here. Sorry, my timeline is sort of at 106 frame. Stupid issue. So let's hide the lights and camera. So let me assign a shader onto this one. And one thing to keep in mind when using the VDBs and the high resolution data is that when you select this smoke VDB, you have these attributes in the volume data. So usually you have this density attribute, which is by default there in the density attribute. And when you're using the month of flow, so this is the attribute which is used. But when you are using the noise data from the high resolution data from the VDB, you see the attributes sound a little bit different, density underscore noise. So if you try and render this with the default density attribute, that this is not going to work. So instead, let's type density underscore noise. Put the same here. And I'm going to use the emission black body and a bit of math. Multiply, another multiply. Let's keep this one power. Let's see how the render looks. So here I tweak the shader a bit. I'm using the density and the similar attribute for the density as well, and just tweak the shader with the multiply and bit of power. So the one thing I'm finding here is when you overlap the volume object with another volume object such as fog or something, then you might start seeing some clipping. As you can see, the outer boundary of this VDB object. So this halo is I mean the VDB, even though the simulation is only in these parts, but this area still have some density. So I'm not quite sure how to resolve this. So I try to use all sort of tweaks in the density attribute or everything. Even with the zero density, you can see the blockiness is still there. So the only way to avoid this was to get rid of this fog, but I didn't want it to just remove the fog entirely. So instead what I did was just move this a bit in the back of the logo unit. So if any of that part is receiving light, we would see some fog there. But later on when I brought in some more smoke here, then I had the same issue. So I tried to keep all the VDB objects separate and things to not overlap. So that was a bit of issue, and I'm not quite sure the solution for this. What is it? One of the other way I could remove this is by using world in the render setting of the VDBs. So if I make this one world, then it's going to render in world space. So that makes some difference, but I couldn't find the exact look here. So let's see. So this is one other way to solve this problem, but I'm not going to actually use the world space. I find that these look much better in the object space. Not quite sure exactly. I think if I spend some more time with this at this moment, I can find some right look for this. But I'm not quite sure if I can afford that much of time at this moment. So I'm going to just work with the object space. So let's move this box in the background. We need some more VDBs here, and I'm just going to copy paste this one. Another issue, if you just simply shift D and duplicate this and then try to change the offset, then it's going to do this for both of the VDBs. So this is a, I don't know, bug or intentional. I'm not quite sure. There are many bugs when it comes to smoke and VDBs. So anyway, so just simply copy and paste. I'm going to use another one. Yeah, this one. And maybe bring some more variation of this, maybe number 11 or something. All right, so I think we are more or less there, and we just need to add some few more details. The one thing is definitely we need some I think we made some pipes here. So these pipes, I totally forgot about these. Let me just make this selectable and move these into our main unit collection and hide these again. So for the lights, we can just bring another layer of detail in the foreground. Very simple stuff. Just going to add one light here and one light here. For the ground part, I'm going to load another VDB, which is going to be smoke for the ground. So let me just copy and paste this and load another set of simulation. Something like this. And I think this one doesn't have the noise data, or yeah, I think there is. So let's load the noise data, and I hope this doesn't overlap with this one. So let's keep it away and make a duplicate of this. Copy, paste, and just place one tiny part here. So basically, it's not just about the smoke simulation. It's not just about adding smoke into the scene or fire. So just think about this. If you leave the area empty, then it's going to be just black and pitch dark. So these smoke, basically the volume objects help scatter the light. So think of it like an additional thing you can benefit from in the lighting part. So some of these lights are going to scatter within these areas wherever we're placing the smoke. So let's render this out. I hope this is not messed up. Yeah, completely forgot about the material. So let me just change the material a bit. So I do see some hint of light, the smoke receiving the light. I think at this moment, what you can do is just tweak the lights, and all you need to do is just fine tune things a bit. So a few things I can think of is this part still looks quite dark. There is such a big source of light emission. These should be pretty bright at this moment. Also, the smoke could be a bit more visible. So I'm going to just stop talking and speed this up a bit, and just going to fine tune a few things. Alright guys, I have made some changes. Basically had to fine tune the shader, the density of these muzzles, added a few extra here. So the placement and everything is a bit messy at this moment of the muzzles. So I'm going to change these when the actual animation happens. So one thing I'm going to do at this moment is just take one high resolution render out of this one and see how everything looks in the actual render. So I'm just going to increase the settings in the render setup, the render properties. So just going to render this out and just want to see all the results in the high resolution. So let me just render this. Alright, so here's the final render, and I had to tweak a few more things. So I just didn't want you to drag the chapter. I hope you get the point, the process that we are dealing with. So here you can see there is some more light, some warm light going on in the mist. This part we have been stuck with this part for quite some time. It was looking pretty dark. So I just went all in and added a pretty big light here. And so I think more or less this looks fine, just that it needs some tweak. And you can do this in the Blender if you want, but here I'm just simply going to bring one simple exposure, color correction exposure. So you can do this in Blender again if you want. Let me just tweak the exposure a bit and maybe sharpen this a bit. So a few more things we can do is I'm just going to add a few glowing sort of streaks, and so I'm not actually going to track the lights, and this is just for the visualization purpose. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the lens flares. So let's see here. I'm just going to simply drag these. Let's add some blue color. Just going to make another duplicate, and I just want to highlight few of the parts. This is just a good post-production detail, and like I said, it's not ideal to add lens flares this way, the loose. You can actually import the 3D camera from the Blender, so that's a whole different task I don't want to discuss at this moment. But it's pretty simple. I think there is a built-in add-on inside the Blender where you can track the lights. So here, instead of using the 2D, you can track the lights. So whatever lights there are there in the Blender, so all those lights will turn into the lens flare. Let's scale this down. I think this looks fine, and maybe we can add another layer of this. So I don't like to composite much in the post-production because for such a small project, most of the work we have already done in the 3D itself, the lights and everything we had figured out. So there's nothing much left for the post-production. The smoke is there, the blast is there, the muzzle and everything. I think this looks pretty fine and I'm not going to change much about this. So the whole purpose of this exercise was to create this one frame where we have everything, all the details are worked out, no uncertainty about how it's going to look in the final frame, how the final, because this is where the entire show title is going to end. Basically this is going to be the final frame. So if you have the end frame figured out for such simple logo intros, then rest of the production is comparatively easy, and it's sort of a guide for the rest of the production, for the look development and everything. And now since we also have a great setup that we have made in the 3D, that is also a good amount of work that is already covered up. So let's build more onto this and finish it up in the next session. And the rest of the things we are going to figure out in the next chapter, where we will basically reframe work with the different cameras and try to reframe for the storyboard the rest of the panels, and also discuss the breakdown of animation and the rest of the steps that led to the final sequence. So it's going to be pretty fun. All we did here was just take the concept and start working with the composition first, blocking the composition and kit bash the whatever kind of models you're going for. If you prefer modeling by yourself, then you can do that as well. So it's completely up to you. In whichever area you want to push it further, you can do that. As long as you can conclude this, you can finish this and you have certain target and not really keep iterating this infinite times, then and if you do make this one, then tag me on the Instagram with instacrossmind, and I would love to see your results. And if you have any questions, then leave those questions in the comment section. Anyone interested in the bonus stuff will have an option to get all the resources of this workshop from my Gumroad page, for which you can find the link in the description. So this will include all the final files for the entire sequence, all the shots, the animations, the lighting, effects, camera and render setups. All that will be there in the files. But keep in mind, any third-party models which I've used in the projects are trimmed out and not really full models. Only parts which are visible and are part of the final shots are there. So full models are not really part of the scene, and the reason behind this is to optimize the final renders. And also, if you want to acquire the original assets, the Sketchfab, ArtStation and Gumroad links will be provided in the boards, where you can actually find the original artist and buy the assets from there originally in the full original condition and support their work. And also a few of the smoke and muzzle simulations and the VDBs which I've used in this project. So in case if you really want to just quickly drag and drop some VDB simulations like muzzle flashes or the ground smoke, etc. So these will be the part of the pack as well. And all the visual boards from the workshops, including the brainstorming session, storyboard, concept sketch, mood board, style frames, etc. So all these boards will be available for you to access as well. And all the sales will be great support for our channel and will enable us to produce more educational content in the future. In the next chapter, we are going to basically work on the rest of the production. The animation we are going to discuss. We are not really going to make animation from the scratch, but instead give you a breakdown of how I worked with the animation. It's pretty simple. Most of the animation is coming from these blast and camera works, so it shouldn't be difficult for you to follow along. Yeah, that's about it. So I'll see you guys in the next chapter. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Take care. Bye bye. Have a great weekend. Thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.